Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory Online Summit. This is Gertrude Macho here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, thank you, Gertrude. My name is Diana Echo Inch. I am coming in from the Pacific Northwest of the United States and Corvallis, Oregon. I am the founder of Relative Peace, providing services to adopted and fostered people, their families, friends, and loved ones. And a little bit about me will be forthcoming. Family secrets. Do you have them? Do you keep them? Are you a family secret? As a mixed race child of the 60s, born to an unwed mother, I was a family secret. And over the 57 plus years that I've been an adoptee, I have felt a passion to help other adopted people. And as a librarian for almost 30 years, I understand that the access to information, personal information, accurate information is so important that I've combined these two things, my adoptee status and my librarian status, into Relative Peace in order to help people navigate the adoption constellation and community and relationships. And so today I feel very fortunate to be here. I have for so long been a librarian, being used to being quiet and not seen very much. And recently I've had the opportunity to come out of my cocoon, spread my wings, and share my voice. And today, what I would like to do with the HerStory Summit is share some adoptee-centered insights into adoption and just raise awareness around adoption issues. And because I'm a librarian, I like the ABCs, and so I'm going to bring you kind of an ABCD guide to some of the issues that I see around adoption, and hope that through this awareness, we can expand our sense of family, destigmatize adoption, and make the world a better place for adopted and fostered people and those that care about them. And so starting with A, that would just be adoption awareness. Now, many people may not know that the adoption industry in the United States is a multi-billion-dollar business, that industry. And I believe that it needs more accountability and transparency to upgrade to the next level. And how we can do that, there are many ways that we can do that, but we can make sure that children aren't rehomed when an adoption fails and rehomed on social media sites. That is something that is going on. That what happened with Georgia Tann back in the 50s, where she stole children and sold them to the wealthy people in power, that is no longer happening. And so having more accountability in the adoption industry would be very helpful, and will up-level the adoption for the future so that people aren't being taken advantage of. Another area that often we disregard when we're thinking about adoption, we're always seeing the happy families being formed. And I really want to share that at its core, at the very start, adoption starts with loss. Adoption starts with some trauma, and that's from the adoptee's point of view where they're severed from their biological family. That affects the biological mother in particular. Sometimes the fathers aren't aware. And oftentimes with adoptive parents, adoption wasn't their first choice, but they came at it after some loss of maybe being unable to get pregnant. And so if we can kind of think of adoption as not such a happy, lucky thing where the adoptee needs to be grateful all the time for being adopted, but really have that understanding that maybe they deserve some empathy and respect, can just help center the experience of the adoptee a little more. So have some concern for them. Oftentimes, like the African orphans may not be orphans, but you would never tell an orphan that you were happy that they were adopted because their family died. So if you have that kind of as a thought, that might be helpful. Another issue in the A's is that the difference, people often pit abortion and adoption against each other. And I would just like to point out that abortion is choosing not to be pregnant, and adoption is choosing not to parent. And my biological mother had the option of both having an abortion. Even though it was the 60s, she had that option, and she knew that that was not her choice. But adoption, she relinquished me because she was not able to parent a mixed race child without the support of a husband and with racist parents. And so that's the start of my A's. And I'll move on to the B's, which I'll say are birthdays, birth certificates, and the best interests of the child. And we often celebrate birthdays, and we don't often recognize that birthdays might be a time to grieve for an adopted person. And that might be because they don't know their true birthday. Particularly with international adoptions, that might be the case. And our birth certificates might not be accurate. We have, in the United States, our original birth certificates are often hidden away from us, and a new amended birth certificate with our adoptive parents' names are our legal records. So it's a kind of a state-sanctioned lie, those are. And just remember that adoption is supposed to be adoptee-centered and about the best interests of the child. And those children grow up and become adults, and we're able to speak for ourselves, where at the time of the adoption, we're often children or babies, and we cannot. And so as a 57-year-old person, I would like access to my original birth certificate the same way that the non-adopted people do. And currently that is not available to me as someone who is in the regular sense. Now, we have been making progress with the open records movement, starting in Oregon, actually in 1998. And just this year, Minnesota actually is allowing adult adoptees access to their original birth certificates. And so we are making progress. I think we're up to 15 or 16 states in the US. And Alaska and Kansas never closed their records. So that's just a little bit of awareness there. That closed records, often they will say that that is to protect the child and the adoptive family. And really, I have found that it has been to protect the agencies and the things that they might have done that perhaps were unethical at times. And that might be changing the race of a Native American child who would be otherwise held to the Indian Child Welfare Act and placed with a Native home. If they changed that to saying that they were Mexican or some other race, then they can place the child freely, more freely. And so closed records, I believe, have protected the agencies rather than protected the children and the biological family and the adoptive family. And when a biological mother relinquishes a child, all they are doing is relinquishing their rights. And so sometimes people will say, oh, well, they were promised secrecy. And that's not the case, because all they're doing is relinquishing their rights. If their child never gets adopted, then the birth certificate stays the original birth certificate. So that's something that maybe people are not aware of. And my birth mother was told that I would have access, and she kept expecting me to find her. And I tried for many years and wasn't able to do that on my own. But now, with access to the DNA kits and home kits, we're discovering and uncovering those secrets, those family secrets. And so I really want to encourage people to be proactive. If you were a birth mother, or maybe a young man who got his high school sweetheart pregnant, and it's been decades and you've been kind of keeping that a secret, maybe start opening up the conversation with your spouse, with your kids, with your family, and just creating that space. So should that now adult child seek you out, you've already prepared yourself. And that might include, getting counseling or therapy to have the supports in place that you need. But I really encourage people to be open to what may come due to the availability of DNA. And it will help to destigmatize the state of being an adoptee, an adopted person. And we can start to embrace each other more fully and create families that are intergenerational and just more expansive. And the truth and honesty about who you are and things that have maybe been hidden in the past, it can be freeing to release those, because birth mothers might have been told to just forget about the child, but we don't have the neuralizer Men in Black pen that can just blank out our memories. We still have those memories, and they might be sitting in that dark place. And so I'm really encouraging people to seek out and release those hidden secrets. And like the caterpillar, that I had a caterpillar fall into my photography bag a couple months ago, and it did form a cocoon and chrysalis. And unfortunately, this is it never came out from the chrysalis. It stayed in, and I think it died. And I really think that sometimes those secrets that we've been hiding can really impact our health, our mental and physical and emotional well-being. And so I encourage you to release those and reach out and be open to expanding your sense of family. So thank you.
Diana, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story with us today. It's just incredible, hearing it from the other side, from somebody who has lived it, been through it, experienced this trauma, the stress that comes in trying to find an adoptive parent. And you were really lucky that you eventually found your mom. And I believe you've got an excellent relationship with her. Tell us, what was that experience like when you eventually met her and the siblings that you've now found out you have?
Yes, well, I always felt like I would find my biological mother. It just seemed that knowing who I was. And growing up, I felt like I grew up gray because I was mixed race and I wasn't sure what I was mixed with. I always had that idea that I would search for her and let her know that I was okay. And I wanted to do that on my own. And part of the reason why I became a librarian was because I would go to the library and go through the old birth announcements. And I spent years from the time I was 18. I had set the goal of finding her by the time I was 30. I didn't want to wait too long and only find a grave. And at 18, 30 seemed so old. But I was unable to find her. And as I was in the middle of my 29th year, I had to hire a confidential intermediary who got into my file, and she told me that there was a letter from my biological mother in my file. And the adoption agency had not shared that with me when years before I had gotten my non-identifying information and had sought out more information on her. And the confidential intermediary said she would send me a copy of the letter, but I asked her to please read it over the phone. And I'll just read the first part because it's so impactful. And my birth mother wrote, "My dearest daughter, there are no words to describe my excitement. I just read an article in a magazine that reports natural mothers can write letters to their children, ask that they be placed in the file, and then hopefully when you reach age, you can request your folder and receive these letters." And that was just the start. And so thankfully she was still alive. And now with DNA, she had burned all of my birth father's information. And so we used DNA to connect with a first cousin on one DNA site and with a half sister on another DNA site. And we have relationships and have met, and we're still looking for my biological father. He had gone to Vietnam and had some trauma experiences there. And so I still have hope that I will get a chance to meet him, but the search is ongoing. Wow. But I've met my half sister, and that has been a joy. And someday I hope to meet my cousin. She's all the way over in New York. So it's a bit of a distance.
So you mentioned that adoption needs more accountability and transparency. Mm-hmm. Can you share specific changes that you'd like to see in the adoptive process to achieve this?
Yes. At the time of an adoption, we're often seeing just the adoptive parents and the biological parents negotiating. And oftentimes the adoptive parents are coming from a more resourced place, and they might have a lawyer who is also counseling the biological mother, usually, and who is looking out for the child, the baby. They might say that lawyer is also looking out for the baby, but I would encourage us maybe to have an adoptee, a child advocate that is actually looking out for the best interests of the child and investigates the potential adoptive household to make sure that it's a good fit, particularly being transracially placed. Sometimes, or international adoptions, sometimes you really need a special family to make that child feel welcome so that they can thrive. So having someone who is definitely looking out for the best interests of the child and making sure that we have adoptees have access to our original families.
Yes.
If we want them. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Now, your experience as a librarian and an educator seems to intersect with your advocacy work. How has your background in these fields influenced your approach to helping adoptees and their families navigate the adoption relationship?
Yes. Well, I have placed such a high value on information, and that comes not just from being an adopted person, but
Mm,
also from the time I spent as an English teacher in China. I spent 3 years there, and I really came to understand how information and access to information
mm,
influences your world and expands it and makes you able to make better decisions. And so it was actually in China when I chose to become a librarian. I had to get over the stigma of needing to have my hair up in a bun and not being always being kind of cranky. And I was like, I don't have to fit that stereotype. And so now, um, just librarians have access to all sorts of information,
yes.
and genealogists, I mean, really appreciate, having that history. And I'm like my own individual genealogist, but there's a
Mhm.
real knack to knowing what resources and who to connect with and putting those together. I feel that I have had many experiences in my past that make me uniquely qualified to
Yeah.
help serve others in this area. And it's, part of my heart to help people.
It's interesting that what was your journey became your vocation. It's really fascinating.
Mhm.
Now, DNA testing has played a significant role in uncovering family secrets.
Mhm.
How has it transformed the way that adoptees and their families connect? And what advice would you give to someone who discovers new family members through DNA testing?
Yes, the DNA has been a real game changer
Mm,
for adoptees in particular, but people in general, because people who aren't adopted, sometimes they find out that they have half siblings, that maybe their
yes.
father was a trucker and
Mhm.
had stops along along
Okay.
the way. And so when you're choosing to do your DNA, um, submit your kit,
Yeah.
really think about what you might find, and if you're ready to
Yeah.
be open to those things. But for adoptees, it's been um, a way around the closed records and the secrecy and the
Mhm.
middleman of having to pay for my own information.
Information. Yes.
I can connect with somebody through the DNA sites and not have to get into my adoption file and records.
Mm,
And some states are going to be a challenge. I was so happy when New York State actually allowed adoptees to gain access to their original
mm,
birth certificates in the last couple of years, and I'm waiting on California. California would be a
next.
big coup, because so many unethical adoptions happened in California, and
Hmm.
not just from the US, from Ireland, right? I don't know if you've seen the movie Philomena, but
Yes.
that shows that, an account of,
True
you know,
story.
yeah, and there are just so many things, and so I really hope that we can continue on, because DNA is going to make it moot if things are open or closed. But I
Yes.
feel that there's still some secrets that people want to keep secret as long as possible.
Mm, very, very fascinating. Now, you talk about adoption as a family secret and
Mm.
how it can impact people's sense of identity. What steps can adoptees and their families take to embrace openness and honesty in their relationships?
Yeah, I feel so blessed that I was adopted into a family that had two sons, two biological sons, and then chose to. Um, they had some miscarriages and then expanded their family through adoption by adopting. I have this really uh, old copy of our family. So my brothers were white, and then they adopted me. I was mixed race, and then they adopted my sister. And so now I think I forgot the question. I'm sorry, but how to just navigate those secrets.
Yes.
And our family, because we were transracially placed, it was never a secret that we were adopted. Now there are people that find out after their parents die, and they're
Yes.
through and they find out, and we call those LDAs, late discovery adoptees. And
Okay.
I forgot to mention my books here. This book, Jamie Kern Lima, she was a late discovery adoptee. This Worthy, How to Believe You Are Enough and Transform Your Life. This is an excellent book if you're struggling with self-worth issues.
Right.
But when you go and maybe choose to connect with biological family, you have to be ready for second rejection or third rejection. And we say that the reunion is a roller coaster,
Roller coaster.
because
Yeah.
sometimes I remember with the first time I got to hug my biological mother was 30 years to the day from the only time she got to hold me. She got to hold
Wow.
me for 30 minutes the day after I was born. And she said when
That's
she gave
incredible.
to the social worker, it was like her heart froze, and she was less than, she wasn't able to feel as deeply and live her life as fully as she might have otherwise. And
Yeah.
then when she said, when she got to hug me, when she saw me 30 years later, it was like unfreezing. And we've been
Wow.
very fortunate. She had not told her sons about me. So I was a
Right.
secret. This was the secret. And she was really nervous about it. And empathy is the answer. And so I was empathetic with her situation. And I just said, they're your sons. Hopefully you raise them well. And, tell them or not, but it doesn't get easier the longer you wait. And so she took them out to breakfast or brunch and told them about their older sister, and they're wonderful humans. And they said, Mom, we don't care if you have 3 kids or 3,000. We love you. You're our mom and we love you. And that was such a relief to her.
Oh,
And
wow.
they're just, I'm so glad that they're in my life too. They're really wonderful people.
You really got lucky with that one. Not many
Mhm.
people get that experience.
Yeah.
So your own reunion experience was a positive one.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for adoptees and their birth parents who may be hesitant or nervous about reuniting?
Yeah, there is a lot of that, and there's reason to be cautious. Um,
Yeah.
some children might not have been, they might have been taken from the home out of neglect and those drug use, alcoholism. There might have been a reason that they were taken out, and so you do need to be cautious. And
Mm.
I again would just encourage people to take precautions and also err on the benefit of the doubt. I'm always thinking that we're doing the best that we can.
Yes.
If there's a chance that I can help you, and that might be with closure or medical information for adoptees, that if I have no children, but had I had a child
Mhm.
with a medical condition and needed like family background history,
Yes.
have some compassion and empathy for each other. And you can also, reach out to others who have been through it. There are many
Mm.
books on reunion, um, and I have all sorts of resources too if
Mm.
you need support and somebody just to, understand what you're going through, because it can be complicated, and it doesn't have to be. And sometimes a reunion might start off with a rejection, and then later they'll open up. And sometimes you start off with a very good reunion and something goes haywire and you're estranged. And that happens in families also, just regular families too, where you might not like your Uncle Bob or whatever. I have an Uncle Bob, he's pretty cool. But yeah, I think just treating everyone with that respect and empathy and compassion, and just be kind to each other. I might have frozen, or maybe you froze. So I will say, seek support. Make sure that you have a strong family or friends supporting your network, supportive network around you. And I'm not sure if this might be where I'm supposed to share 3 nuggets. And so I'm going to guess that it might be. And I would say that family, you get to choose your family sometimes. Did you freeze?
It froze and I disappeared, but I'm glad you kept going. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's end our interview with one last question. And this is a bit of a time experiment. If time was an illusion and I could take you back to go and have a conversation with the younger you, the young woman who was on a quest to find her birth mother, if you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
Yeah, my first nugget of wisdom would be to be able to choose your family and who that might be. And you're looking for people who can support you and who believe in you and who value you. And hopefully that's your adoptive family. Hopefully that's your biological family. And if it's not, it might be your friends or coworkers or pets or books, right? But you get to choose and build your family around you and keep you at the center of that, what is best for you. Yeah, so that would be one. 2 is that, again, you are worthy and you are people. I have been a chronic people pleaser most of my life, and oftentimes adoptees are put into a situation where they're filling a role, right? If family wasn't able to have a child, or maybe they wanted a daughter, you're put into this role. And so I spent a lot of time pleasing others. And I've recently discovered, like, I am people too, and I can please, put myself first and please me. And that allows me to have the energy and, I don't know, space to help others. And so just knowing that you're worthy. And again, now Jamie Kern Lima's book is super helpful in that regard. And the third one would be treating others as supportively and respectfully as you can, and with that compassion to expand maybe your sense of family, so that if you get a call or an email from someone seeking information, do your due diligence and make sure that it's a legitimate request and that person is, not trying to scam you, but be open to expanding your family, and making the world a better, more open and connective network.
Fantastic. Diana, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story during our online summit.
Thank you.
It's an absolute privilege to know you. I know that you have some resources that can help other people who are on this journey and this quest. Tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about what you are offering.
Yeah, well, Gertrude's put up the adoptionzoomiverse.com sign up, and you can sign up there, and I will connect with you and provide resources, invite you to events that are coming up, and just support anyone in the adoption constellation, or even if you're curious, maybe you're thinking about adopting, or maybe you're a biological mother or father who has some questions about how best to talk to your current family, or
Yes,
and so I'm just here. I'm kind of your resourceress, your adopted librarian resourceress. So if you have questions
fantastic.
or needs, domestic or international, I am very good at researching and would love to connect and help and get your, you know, get out of your cocoon,
Yes.
get out
Otherwise,
into the
yeah.
light, get into the light, spread your wings, and just make this world a more beautiful, beautiful place.
Thank you, Diana. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is bringing you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, inspire you, energize you, but most importantly, to empower you, to take you from where you are now to where you want to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I have another amazing speaker. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Diana, thanks again for this amazing presentation. Bye for
Thank
now,
you.
everybody.